Hello all and welcome to this video, and in this one I'm going to give you my 5 top tips for walking the South Downs Way. So tip number 1 is to start from Winchester and to walk to Eastbourne, so to walk from west to east. This was recommended to me. A couple of reasons. One, because you have the prevailing winds behind you, generally coming from the southwest here in England, and also just to do with what you see. So you finish at Eastbourne, you finish at the Seven Sisters, and you get that amazing view at the end of the English Channel. And if the weather is being kind to you, it really is something special. You get the white cliffs, you get all those hills and views. It really is something. Also, you can get to Winchester really easily from places like London. So I managed to get from London to Winchester in about an hour. Tip number 2 is to not take too much food. Now, I took about 4 days worth of food, but I didn't use all of it. And the reason for that is because you will be surprised by how many places you can drop into along the way. So there are little cafes that pop up, there are pubs in many villages and small towns that you pass through, so you don't have to pack as if you're going into the wilderness for a long period of time. The good thing about the South Downs Way is you do feel like you are in the middle of nowhere, but at the same time you're not far from places that you could go to. So do take stuff with you, but have a look in advance, trust the places that you can top up on, and yeah, don't overdo it. I came back with loads of tuna for some reason. Tip number 3 is to make use of the available campsites along the route. When I planned to do the South Downs Way, I had it as an objective to wild camp as much of it as possible, and I did get to do a few wild camps, but also there are completely adequate campsites along the way that you will be very, very grateful for, to freshen up, sort of recharge battery packs, have a shower, and just generally you just really appreciate it. There are sections of the South Downs Way that are very hard going, and probably the last thing you want to do at the end of the day is to be looking around for somewhere to wild camp, and just knowing that you're going to get to a farm campsite and you can just put your tent up and just completely relax is something I would really highly recommend. So I did a kind of a mix, but if I was to do it again, I probably would sort of think ahead a bit more and maybe even book into some campsites before I left. So yeah, definitely make use of the campsites. Wild camping on the South Downs Way is not as straightforward as you think it is. I found that there were places to wild camp, but when I found them, it was kind of during the day when I didn't need them. So yeah, you can wild camp, but it's not as easy as some other trails in the UK, from my understanding, where you can literally just plonk your tent down and just go for it and then leave early in the morning. So really make use of those campsites. Tip number 4 is to trust the signs. Now, the South Downs Way is a national trail, and that means it's really well maintained, and the signposts are really, really good. There was only one time that I took a bit of a wrong turning, and so out of 100 miles, that's not too bad really. So it is very well signposted. You should still take a paper map with you, and I also have the OS map on my phone as well, which occasionally I use just to sort of pinpoint where I was. But in terms of the paper map, I didn't have to look at it much at all. You know, it was useful to glance at and kind of review the day, or to sort of think about where I was going the next day. But I would say 80% of the time I use the signs, the South Downs Way signs. It is very well signposted. And finally, tip number 5 is the seasons that I would recommend doing this hike in. I did it in spring. We had an unusual cold snap in April this year, 2023, when I left. And if you've seen my video, you'll know about that. So yes, April can be a bit of a funny month, because it can kind of go either way. But in hindsight, I'm really glad that I did do it in spring. It's the summer now, and I really wouldn't want to be doing the South Downs Way in the summer. It's very exposed, it gets very warm, very hot, you're really exposed to the sunlight, and I've heard lots of stories of people kind of giving up or being really dehydrated. So especially if you're new to thru hiking, I wouldn't recommend tackling this in the summer, definitely not the winter. So I would say if you're going to do this hike, I would do it in the spring, or I would do it in the kind of sort of early mid-autumn time. A bonus tip before I go, and that is, if you can, post yourself some goodies to resupply on this route. So what I did, and this was recommended by a friend of mine, is I made up a little package, a little jiffy bag of chocolate and sweets and some instant noodles and bits and bobs like that, and I posted it to the youth hostel at Truly Hill, which was around the 63 mile point. I gave them a ring before I went and said, you know, could I do this? And they were very obliging, said no problem, Ben. And I posted it off to them, and it got there, and I can't tell you, it was just so nice to kind of get there and to book in. And then they said, oh, and here's the package. And I went to my room and just poured it all out onto the floor, huge bar of chocolate, and you know, it's just a real morale boost, and it's very handy too. So I hope that's been helpful. If you've got tips of walking the South Downs Way, get in the comments, let me know. Good luck if you're doing it, and thanks for watching.